スト翻訳始まるよ。皆さんこんにちは。今日はメダリストエピソード3を見ています。本当に楽しみです。いのりちゃんとひかるちゃんはすごく可愛くて真面目ですね。つかさんも優しい人だと思います。本当に見てくれてありがとうございます。これからもよろしくお願いします。2 months? That's quick.
いただきます。
美味しそう。名古屋 Winning medals is like the most exciting thing. Yeah, you got a long ways to go. You got to work really hard. That's a hard rival. That's like me picking Ashley Wagner to be my rival, practically. Yay, we're gonna compete! So here in the United States, we have like tons of what we call club competitions locally. And at those competitions, they're just held at local ice rinks. It's not something that you see on TV, but it will start at the very lowest level, which here is called Snowplow Sam, which is literally like marching, how to fall down and get a glide forward on 2 feet, but you can compete at that level just so you can start to get that experience competing. But you get to compete all the time long before you ever get to those levels that are on TV. So most local competitions have every single level available to you. In fact, a lot of times the more local competitions, those super high level skaters won't compete at because they'll just compete at the bigger events. But that's how most of us get our competing experience, our local events that have all the levels, but they're not on TV or anything. It's usually just friends and family that come and watch you. Very nerve-wracking still. I love competing, but also hate competing. It's a weird mix. Oh, that's terrifying. Most skaters at that level, you just become instant friends. You have so much to connect on, and you spend a lot of time at the ice rink. Sit spin in a Salco. Oh, she's learning how to do programs and start to jump. It's terrifying. It's even terrifying to run through these programs on practice. Whenever my coach would be like, it's time to practice your program, I'd be like, Single Sam? Yep. So there are quite a few different jumps that I'm going to explain to you all now so you know what they are. It's hard to know exactly how to tell them apart unless you really get on that ice, because some of them, the difference comes down to simply the edge that the foot takes off on. But first is the waltz jump. So that is the one that is only half a rotation. It is the precursor to an axel, which is usually the easiest jump to be able to tell the difference of from all the others, because this jump, they will set up going backwards, but they actually take off going forward, and it is a half extra rotation than all the other jumps. So waltz jump is the precursor. It is just a half jump. And then you have the Salchow after that, which is an edge jump, meaning you do not stick your toe in the ice as hard as you can in order to launch yourself. You actually launch yourself off of a deep edge, which you're still going to use a little bit of toe pick, but you're not going to like hammer it into the ice. You're going to take the edge of the skate that you're on, you're going to dig in, and you're going to launch off using that. Your other foot usually just kind of loops in rather than picking into the ice. After that, you have a toe loop, which is a toe pick jump. If you are right-handed and you spin counterclockwise, you'll put your left toe pick in and you'll use that to launch yourself off while your right foot is on an inside edge and you jump through. A loop jump is an edge jump as well, but a way to be able to tell the difference is you'll see the skater set up going backwards on 2 feet, and they actually use both feet to really launch themselves up without sticking a toe in. However, the back foot that they lean on is going to be the one that requires the most work to launch yourself into the air. Then you have a flip jump. Flip jump, if you are right-handed and spin counterclockwise, you'll put your right toe. You'll usually be able to tell when they take off for a flip jump because they're going to start forward and they're going to turn backwards at the last second and then ram their right toe in as hard as possible to get them into the air. And then finally the Lutz jump, which I believe is what Hikaru did in the last episode. A Lutz jump, actually, the way you can usually tell the difference is most of them are actually going to set up in the corner rather than kind of like on the sides. They go diagonally across the ice to set up. And the big difference between a flip and a Lutz jump is quite simply the foot that you are not picking with. So in the case of a right-handed person, your left foot, the flip you take off from an inside edge, the Lutz you take off from an outside edge. And a Lutz is way harder because it forces you to go against your body's natural ways to go. And many skaters struggle with their Lutz technique for their entire lives and do what's called a flutz, where because it's so hard to get that clear outside edge when you take off, you flip to your inside edge at the last minute and you don't get as high of a base value. Once you master the Lutz, that's when you start working on your single axle, which is the big first one that becomes very difficult because you now have to rotate 1.5 times in the air because you are back to kind of what the waltz jump was, where you are taking off forwards and then you are landing backwards, so you have to do an extra half rotation than the sow cow, toe loop, loop, flip, and Lutz, which is what makes the axle so difficult, and it's why the triple axle is something that is becoming more common in women's figure skating, but is still something that you don't necessarily need to win. You can do a double axle, but you can't do a double flip, a double Lutz, just by itself and be competitive at this senior level. I could go into way more details to explain the very specific mechanics, but I fear that I will lose you, so I will leave it at that, and we will keep moving forward. Uh-oh. It is also very common to completely forget your choreography in the middle of the program out of nerves. I'm pausing again. There was one competition where I have all of my DVDs. I think my parents have it at their house, but you can tell I completely forgot the choreography in the middle of the program. Luckily, this was pretty long after I had started. I was already doing double jumps, so I'd been doing it for at least 5 years at this point. So I didn't completely freeze up, but I literally just kind of skated in circles and did a couple very simple turns and looked at my coach and kind of gave her a look, and she was like, "Well, you're out there, you better figure it out." And then I eventually figured out where I was. I just ended the program quite late. I think I got a time violation actually, but it can definitely happen no matter how many times you practice. Those nerves make your brain go, "I'm not working anymore." Oh, she's scared of the people. She's scared of the people watching her. Oh, they're not actually laughing at you though, I don't think. Wow, he's very fit. It's even scarier because now everyone's looking. It's actually terrifying when your coach goes out there and does your choreography for you because you're like, oh, you're way better than me. But it also can be helpful to truly see it in action and see what they're envisioning in their head. とても上手。Aww. He's very passionate about skating. It's hard because you'll see your coach do it and you'll be like, wow, that's beautiful, but you almost never can perfectly match your coach because they're usually a higher level than you. かわいい。Who are you? I know quite a few coaches like that. Some skaters need more of this than they need the kindness. That it's definitely a thing that happens. It's all based off of the skater and what they need, what their coaching style will be. I will say, don't know if this is just a not America thing. I have never seen people wear jean shorts with tights when they skate. They don't move well enough. ケーキは食べたい。 rivals. This might be a better rival, honestly, than Hikaru-chan. That's not a great way to think in this sport. But hey, if it works for you, you know. I can see why her coach was talking to her like she did. But weren't you doing things on your own for a while? Okay, so I actually had to have this conversation with my husband a couple years ago because I was telling him I wanted to take some lesson, and he's like, why don't you just skate on your own? So there is a lot of independence to skating, and you have to be willing to do things without a coach telling you what to do. There is a lot of time, especially when you're starting out, where you're going to be skating on your own without your coach's supervision. Having a coach supervision 24/7 is so incredibly expensive that most people can't handle that. For reference, here, 1 hour with a coach runs about $90 to $100 for 1 hour. So that is very expensive. Here, I will also convert that. 100 USD to $100 an hour is roughly 15,600 Japanese yen. So that is a lot of money, and because of that, you're going to spend a lot of time on your own. Figure skating is a sport, however, that you need to have someone watching you and critiquing every small movement because there's a lot of aerodynamics and just science in general involved. There are things that you cannot physically see, and it's such a technique-heavy sport. This isn't running. You're not just going out there and running and just learning a little bit of technique, how to make you faster. Every single thing that we do is based off of very specific technique. You have to have a coach to help with that. There are very few times where you'll see someone compete without a coach. There have been times where I have seen high-level skaters go to big competitions without coaches. Shoma Uno is someone who went through a coaching change, and so there was a period of time where he went out there without a coach, and that is very abnormal. Everyone in the figure skating world was talking about how weird that was. So you have to have a coach, and you have to rely on their expertise a lot in this sport because everything is so full of technique, down to how you turn, what side of the blade you're on. Like we've seen in this show so far, we've seen a lot of talk about inside and outside edge, and that is all very important. Where your arms are placed, how your hands are, where your head is, everything down to all of those small details your coach will help you with. So you have to rely on the coach a little bit. But there is also some time where you have to be independent and be willing to take what your coach said and practice that. So I can see where she's coming from, but I think that she needs to be okay with listening to the adults in her life, and I think Inori needs to be maybe a little bit more independent and okay with practicing on her own sometimes. So they're not wrong and they're not right. I was about to say that was a double sow. Wait, so she's competing against her and she can do a double sow? That is what we would call sandbagging. She should be in a much higher level. But they have them compete lower so they can win. Yep. They just said it. It's interesting because in the US, prelim is actually preliminary, which is where there's double jumps. You have to have that to be competitive, but I think this is much lower level here in Japan. Ooh. 2つ目は美味しいです。
先にまず基礎の完成度を上げる作戦があったら2回転に挑戦する。イチゴはあくまで後から入れる付加価値。間に合ったら入れる。どっちを選ぶ。大会のジャンプ構成だけじゃない。これから何度も選択の瞬間はやって。
It usually takes at least a year of practice before you can even attempt a double jump, and it usually takes a long time to be able to land them. She's gonna have to put a lot of work into it. He's behind you either way. There's more to skating than just jumping. Good idea. Yes, that's also going to mean less injuries as well. Figure skating is both sides. And while jumps definitely are going to get you more points, and if you can do all the high-level jumps and your skating skills are iffy, you can still win. But people will like you better, and you will be a much more well-rounded skater if you also work on everything else and be a good skater with good skating skills. It's a balance. You don't want to be just a jumper. There's a desire to, but you gotta work on all of it. You're gonna hurt yourself. You gotta get through all the jumps first. Have you landed an axle yet? Like, you gotta land all the single jumps, and you gotta be like, you've gotta gain mastery of all of them first. You gotta just work through it. You can't skip. Yes, lots of moms are up at night putting crystals on their skaters' dresses. Yes, to save money. You need to get her to land everything else first. Okay, I'm wondering where this is going because we can't skip over all these jumps. Last we saw she could do a single Saukow. We couldn't see if she could do a toe loop, a flip, a Lutz, or an axle. Axle usually takes a very long time to land. It is very common to take over a year to be able to land an axle because you are going from very easy rotation that's open to having to actually close in and rotate a jump. So I don't know where we're going with this. You can't just skip to a double Saukow. I don't know if they're just choosing not to show the fact that she has gone through and landed all those jumps, but we need to see like an axle first. We need to see that takes a while to land. Some skaters can get away with it. Some of them will take less than a year, but it'll still take a few months usually for someone to land a single axle. So I don't know if we're just missing some pieces here or if we're going a little bit too far right now. You have to go through all of the jumps properly and you have to master them before you add a rotation, because once you start doing more than one rotation in the air, the chance of landing wrong and injuring yourself, like what happened to her sister, goes way up. So you have to be very, very careful with the way that you learn the jumps. My coach made me be able to do like a single Lutz, single loop combo where you do the Lutz. You don't take any steps in between. You just go right back up into a loop. Before she was ready to teach me an axle, you have to be able to master all these other jumps before you're ready to add a rotation. So again, I don't know if we're just skipping over her learning all the other jumps, but this is my first time where I'm like, this feels a little bit fast. We need to see that axle, and we definitely need to wait on the double sow because it takes a while to get there. It usually takes a skater a couple years, and I know we're working against time right now. However, that's just the natural progression of things, no matter how old you are. Did I misunderstand what he was saying earlier? Maybe. That was actually... So this is showing that there's a pathway, so you learn a double-double first, and then you need to master the double-double-double combo, and then you'll master a double axle, and then you'll master a triple jump. So This kind of shows the pathway well, so I don't really know why we're skipping over all these single jumps to get to the double. I don't know if I'm misunderstanding something, if I looked away for too long, but I have not seen her land a single axel, so I don't know why she's going for a double sow cow. Oh, lost stock. My dog does that. I wonder if this maybe is also part of the story. It's trying to prove that you can't just skip over. Or she's gonna master it now. That was a good flying sit spin. Better than I could have ever done. She's not traveling? That's good. You want to stay in the same spot while you spin. You don't want to travel all over because that means you don't have control over your blade while you spin. Okay, I like that we went in the realm of mastering a spin over trying to master a double sow cow when I haven't seen her do anything other than a single sow cow. And at that low level, spins are worth way more than jumps. Jumps only start being worth more than spins once you start doing triples. There you go. Okay, so that was Medalist Episode 3. A lot of thoughts that I kind of talked about already. She's seemingly trying to progress too fast through the jumps, which is just not going to work out. You have to go through each one in order to be able to land a double jump. It takes a long time to get to that point because the technique for a double jump is entirely different than a single jump, and it requires timing, it requires strength, it requires a whole lot of different stuff that just doesn't happen overnight. In the US, we have all of the learn to skate levels, which is like Snowplow Sam, and then you have basic 1 through 6, and then you have free skate 1 through 6, which I think we recently changed, and then you get to pre-preliminary, preliminary, pre-juvenile, juvenile, intermediate, novice, junior, senior. Those are our levels. So I'm having a hard time finding exactly how it is in Japan, but I'm assuming that they probably are allowed to do jumps at the prelim level. That being said, she should not be going for that double jump. She is not quite ready yet, and I would like to see her progress through those jumps a little bit more. Outside of that, no tears this time because we're getting into the nitty-gritty. However, I do know that it's probably going to still continue to make me emotional.
それでは今日出てきた英単語を振り返ってみましょう。
Nerve-wracking.
この単語は非常に緊張する、または不安を引き起こす状況を意味します。試験や重要なプレゼンテーションなど、緊張やストレスを感じる場面を表現する際に使われます。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
The final exam was nerve-wracking for all the students.
期末試験はすべての学生にとって神経をすり減らすようなものだった。
Waiting for the results of the job interview was nerve-wracking.
就職面接の結果を待つことは非常に緊張するものだった。どれだけ練習をしても、本番ではひどく緊張するものですよね。ちなみにこのナーブという単語は神経という意味ですが、体や心の緊張全般に関することを指す際に使われています。そう考えると、意味もわかりやすいかもしれません。
Precursor.
この単語は、後に続く出来事や現象の前兆となるもの、または先駆けとなる人や事物を意味します。科学や歴史、技術の分野で使われることが多いです。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
The dark clouds were a precursor to the storm.
暗い雲は嵐の前兆だった。
The early computer models were the precursors of today's advanced technology.
初期のコンピュータモデルは今日の高度な技術の先駆者だった。フィギュアスケートのジャンプにはジャンプをする前の予備動作が必要なものが多いようですね。一度3回転や4回転を飛んだ先駆者がいるからこそ今のフィギュアスケートがあると言えますね。
Struggle.
この単語は困難や問題に対して奮闘すること、または苦しむことを意味します。個人的な挑戦や困難な状況に直面する際に使われます。 こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
He struggled to finish the project on time.
彼はプロジェクトを期限内に終わらせるために奮闘した。
They are struggling with financial difficulties.
彼らは経済的な困難に苦しんでいる。祈りは2回転サルコーの習得にだいぶ苦戦している様子でしたね。優勝するためにその習得に励んでいるということだとは思いますが、現実的には相当厳しい道のりだということなんでしょうね。
Violation.
この単語は法律や規則、権利などに対する違反や侵害を意味します。法的な文脈や倫理的な問題について話す際に使われます。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
The company was fined for environmental violations.
その会社は環境違反で罰金を課せられた。
Any violation of privacy rights is a serious concern.
プライバシー権の侵害は重大な問題だ。フィギュアスケートでも時間制限の違反はあるみたいですね。というか、私はフィギュアスケートを見る際に時間制限のことなんてあんまり気にしたことがありませんでした。やっぱり、まだまだ未知の領域です。
Laugh at.
この表現は、誰かや何かを笑う、または嘲笑することを意味します。軽蔑やからかいを表現する際に使われます。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
They laughed at his silly joke.
彼らは彼の馬鹿げたジョークを笑った。
It's not nice to laugh at someone's mistakes.
誰かの失敗を嘲笑するのは良くないことだ。祈りがクラブに入った際に他の子に笑われないかと心配していましたね。意地悪なリーダー格の子がいない限りは笑われることは少ないかと思います。そんなことがあれば、コーチの指導不足も指摘されますしね。
On one's own.
この表現は自分自身で誰の助けも借りずに独力で行うことを意味します。独立して行動することや自力で何かを達成する状況を表現する際に使われます。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
She learned to cook on her own by watching videos online.
彼女はオンラインで動画を見ながら一人で料理を学んだ。
He prefers to work on his own rather than in a team.
彼はチームで働くよりも一人で働くことを好む。祈りは司くんがコーチに着く前から独学でスケートを習っていましたね。どんな分野でもそうかもしれませんが、独学だといずれ限界が来るのかもしれません。けど、たくさんお金がかかるんですよね。
Abnormal.
この単語は通常とは異なる、または普通ではないことを意味します。医学、心理学、統計学などの分野で標準的な範囲を外れる現象や状態を指す際に使われます。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
The doctor noticed an abnormal growth in the patient's lung.
医者は患者の肺に異常な腫瘍を発見した。
Her behavior has been quite abnormal lately.
最近彼女の行動がかなり異常だ。宇野昌磨選手がコーチなしでスケートをしていた時期があるのは、業界の人からしたらかなり異常らしいですね。ちなみに動画でも触れましたが、アブノーマルと言ってもいやらしい意味はありません。多分。
Independent.
この単語は、他人や他のものに頼らずに自立していることを意味します。個人や国、組織が独自に行動する能力や状態を表現する際に使われます。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
She is an independent woman who runs her own business.
彼女は自分のビジネスを運営する自立した女性だ。
The country gained its independence from colonial rule.
その国は植民地支配から独立を獲得した。スケート選手はコーチをつけた後も、ある程度は自分だけで練習した方がいいらしいですね。やっぱりある程度自分の力でやっていくことも必要だということでしょうか。頼れるのは自分の力のみ。はい、違いますね。
Preliminary.
この単語は最終的な段階に進む前の予備的な段階や準備段階を意味します。試験や研究、計画などの初期段階や準備段階で使用されます。 こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
The team held a preliminary meeting to discuss the project.
チームはプロジェクトについて話し合うための予備会議を開いた。
The results of the preliminary tests were promising.
予備試験の結果は有望だった。アメリカでもいろんなレベルがあるみたいですが、日本でも調べてみたら1級から8級まで様々なレベルがあるようです。ただいずれにせよ、フィギュアスケートの世界では飛び級はできないみたいですね。
Well-rounded.
この単語は特定の分野に偏らず、様々な分野でバランスよく優れた能力を持つことを意味します。教育、スキル、人格などが全体的に調和の取れた状態を表現する際に使われます。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
She is a well-rounded student, excelling in both academics and extracurricular activities.
彼女は学業と課外活動の両方で優れているバランスの取れた学生だ。
A well-rounded diet includes a variety of foods to ensure proper nutrition.
バランスの取れた食事は適切な栄養を確保するために様々な食品を含む。フィギュアスケート選手はジャンプだけじゃなく、いろんなことができるバランスの取れた選手になることが重要だそうですね。語学学習も同じで、例えばリスニングだけができるという状態はいけませんよね。やっぱり万能こそが最強！